There are 71 commands in Minecraft, and I'm going to give a brief summary of every single one. Here we go. So let's start with advancement. Advancement is a command that, well, gives you advancements. It's a fairly simple command. You do the you say advancement, and then if you want to grant or revoke it, the target that you're going to be doing this on has to be a player. So this will get @p gets the nearest player, and then a keyword, and then the advancement you want to grant or revoke. Until will basically grant all advancements up till that advancement. So if I click this, and I go to advancements, you'll see it goes up until that advancement, which is summon the withering heights. As you can see, this is its ID. You can also grant specifically only one advancement and nothing else. Oh yeah, by the way, and if you want to revoke, you can revoke keywords, everything. I do everything here, but it also works if you have specific. You can also use these keywords here and revoke those. So if I go here, there's no advancements. This will grant only summon wither. So if I click this, you see it's only this, but everything else is unachieved, advanced, whatever. And then this will grant from, so this is everything after it. I'm not sure why you'd use this, but you can certainly grant the achievements right after that one. And then finally, there's through, which grants all the advancements before and after it. Next command is attribute, which is a very fun one because it allows you to change attributes such as armor, flying speed, gravity, even size is somewhere here. Scale, there we go. You can make yourself bigger and smaller. So first we have attribute, the target, and then what attribute you want to change. Then you can set the base value to be any value we want. I think there are some limitations, but anyway. This will set my base armor to be 10. And if you look, you can see I have 10 armor bars there, even though I'm not wearing any armor. The next one, this one resets the base, so it resets it to whatever it should be, which is 0. This command will actually get what my current movement speed is. So if I put get here, instead of set, I use get, and get allows me to get it. And my movement speed right now is 0.1000000, a bunch of numbers. I'm not sure why it's that, but it is. If you want to, instead of change the base, you can actually change the modifier. This will add a modifier to me, and we're going to call this modifier. We're going to give it an ID, and the ID will be name. You can really have the ID be whatever you want, but we're going to call it name. Now you have the number for what the modifier is. This modifier will be 1, and the modifier type will be an add. So this will add 1 to my movement speed. We could do a multiply. This would multiply it by 1, and I'm not sure what these other mean. So if I click this, it will add 1 to my movement speed. As you can see, that's very fast. If I do the get command again, it gets 1.1 instead of 0.1. But if I do base get, then it will actually get my actual base speed. It doesn't include modifiers in that. Finally, you can remove modifiers. Remember how we named it name? Well, if you go here, you see Minecraft name. That's because a lot of things have Minecraft before it. You have to get used to each command. Each command sometimes doesn't use it, but this one does. And this will remove the modifier that I previously added. And now I'm at normal speed. The next command we'll go over is bossbar. That's going to take a while. Bossbar basically allows you to add a bossbar to the top of the screen. And here's well, first you need to create the bossbar in the first place. So this will add a new bossbar that we're going to call test, that's its ID. And this is what it displays its name as. Now this is JSON text format. There's plenty of generators online, but if the most simple is doing text in quotations, colon, and then whatever text you want. So if I click this button, It says created custom bossbar, but there's no bossbar. So, but it does exist. If we list all the bossbars, we can see it's there. We just can't see it. If we want to see it, then we have to add players to it. So bossbar set, then we get its ID. It's Minecraft test, as you can see. And then here we have players, which means I'm going to be adding all players I'm going to be setting test to include all the players. And now that I'm included, I can see the bossbar. Now, with bossbars, you can make them look very different. You can give them a color. You can set their color to be something. You can set the style to be something. You can set all these things. Oh. You can set all these things, like if they're visible or not, and the max. These little set of commands will set the color, the style, and then the max value to be 9, and then the actual value to be 6. So we should get a green bossbar that's notched and has 6 out of 9 spaces. But as you can see, it didn't really work. It's green, yes, and it also is notched, but it didn't fill the bossbar at all. And this is because of this other command block type, chained. Basically, chain will, if a command block activates like an impulse or a repeating, if it's facing towards the chain, it will activate the chain. And then the chain can activate other things and so on. And it can go on for a while. But this one, and usually you have always active, so the chain will always chain. But this one here needs redstone. So this block will only continue the chain if it's powered by redstone. And then it works. So as you can see, the notches are filled, 6 out of 9, although there are 12 notches. We don't talk about it. Now, if you want to get info about your bossbar, you can use bossbar get. Then get the ID, and then whatever you want to get from it. You can get the max, the players, if it's visible or not. And as you can see, we can get the value, and it's 6. Finally, you can remove bossbars. So we're going to remove our testing bossbar, and it will lose all its data. The next command is clear. Let me just grab some items real quick. Clear will, well, clear your inventory. See, clear at B, this will clear the nearest player's inventory. Boom. Nada. But say we don't want to clear everything. Well, you can actually clear specific items. So this will clear all arrows from my inventory. And as you can see, it worked. And then finally, you can also have a number at the end here, which it means the maximum amount of items it can clear. So this will clear myself of grass blocks, but only a max of 5 of them. As you can see, every time I click this button, I lose 5 grass blocks. And that's basically it. Clone is one of the more complicated commands. I honestly probably shouldn't have done this in alphabetical order, but it's too late now. Clone, you basically have to scan an area and then give it a new position, and it will clone a build to be in a different place. So this command here has these 2 coordinates, which are from here to a point right here, which basically selects the entire build. And then it's going to place that build right here. And as you see, it's the bottom, the most corner, where as you can see on my crosshair, all the axes are at their least. So you clone it to the bottommost corner, and boom. And this replace here is just what it always does. I could remove this and it would still work. Now that we've cloned it, there's other things you can do with clone. For example, if you want to, you could have it move. So this will replace the blocks from here to here, all the blocks if I placed anything here, and it's going to move it from here to here, and boom, move the build. There's also a modifier called masked, which only replaces air blocks in the other opposing thing. So if I place a bunch of grass here, it's not going to replace all the blocks. It's just going to replace blocks that were grass. So it basically brings all blocks over except for air specifically. Finally, there is filtered. Filtered will only bring over a specific block. So this one is said to bring only white wool over. So if I, say, made a bunch of white wool, then I build a bunch of other stuff on top of it, it will clone it over, but it will only clone the white wool. Oh, shoot. Oh, shoot. You saw nothing. So as you can see, it only cloned the white wool. None of these other blocks here. Finally, which I accidentally clicked, is force. Force basically forces the clone to happen. Usually when you do clone, if this wasn't here, you aren't allowed to clone. The source and destination areas cannot overlap. Which means if I cloned this build from here to here, then they're overlapping, so it's not going to work. But if you use force, it works fine. A final thing you can do with clone is clone in other dimensions. So you can clone, you scan the same build, it's scanning this one I believe, it might be doing that one, I'm not sure. But anyway, after you do 2, and then the dimension you want, so this is the nether here, and then the coordinate in that place. So if I go through here, you see I have a coordinate right here. So it should clone everything out of this dimension into the nether. And as you can see, it worked perfectly. Although there is a caveat with this, the chunks here must be loaded. That will be explained in a future command, actually. Next is damage. Damage, well, it does damage to players. Well, I'm in creative mode. I can't take damage from cactus. And boom. Well, I just realized my spawn was set somewhere completely different. But anyway, basically, as you can see, it did 20 damage of type cactus. And I got the death message that I was pricked to death. I'm going to set my spawn point now. Ha 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 ha. Okay. A fun fact is there's different damage types. So if you're immune to a certain damage type, it won't do anything, as you saw with this one in creative. But damage, you know what you can do in you know what damage can do damage in creative mode is generic kill. This is the damage that /kill does. And as you can see, I take damage from it, even if I'm in creative. Finally, is with the damage command, you can do by or at, which basically doesn't do much with the damage, but it changes the death message itself. So this is going to do 20 damage to me with arrow by this ocelot right here, the nearest entity that's type ocelot. So if I go to survival, boom, I was shot by an ocelot. And finally, there's also at, which I think it can change the death message, but the most noticeable part of it is that it can change the knockback. So as you can see, this is doing arrow damage at the position of the command block. That's what the tildes are. Based on the position of the command block, it will be the same. And it will do damage 1, and as you can see, I get knocked away from the command block. Next is data. This one's a lot more complicated than the rest. It requires a lot more memorizing things, but it's extremely useful. Let's first see what data looks like. So if we want to see the data of an entity, we do data, get, entity, closest player. You could also get the data of blocks and storage. I'll explain storage later. Whatever. So as you can see, I have a lot of data here. And to be perfectly honest, most of it you're never going to use. But sometimes, specific things like selected item slot or selected item somewhere, I don't know where that is actually useful. If we don't want all that data and we just want to see a specific thing, we could put a path right after. So here we can get we're getting my data again, but now we have a path of inventory. if you look here, you can find inventory if you look hard enough, but I don't feel like looking for it, so I'm just going to do this. And as you can see, it gets my inventory data, which right now includes a red bed. If I do this again with a different inventory, you can see all the data of everything I'm holding. Their slot, how much I have of them, and anything in between. Anything about the items specifically. But we could be even more specific. This path will now get the inventory is a list, right? So lists use these square brackets, and we're getting the thing in the list that has this data. So this will get the data of the item in my inventory with this NBT data, which is slot 1B. So it will get the first slot of my inventory. As you can see, we get count 1, slot 1B, ID grass block, which you can see over here as well. But you may be wondering, why is this slot 1 instead of this being slot 1? Well, that's because lists always count from 0, so in slots as well. So this bed here is in slot 0. This is in 1, this is in 2, and then it continues going. This is slot 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 31, and so on. Ah yes, the chest. So, this chest will be important in a second, but here we're learning data merge. Merge basically merges data into an entity or block. But it does not work on players. You cannot use /data to modify any player data using whatever. You just can't do it, which is kind of annoying, but I digress. Say we want to change the stuff in this chest, though. We can merge a new list of items to be in this block, which is here, which is that chest right there, and this is the data. Now, it might be a little complicated, like how am I supposed to know what to write here? And to actually do that, it's useful to use data get. So we're using data get again to get the data of the block. And we can see the exact format on how we write the data for the chest. So I basically took this, I basically copied it and put it here. And now I just changed that to be a command block instead at a different slot and a different count. So if I do this here, it should make the chest only hold a command block in the first slot and just one of them. As you can see, it put a command block in slot 1, which this is slot 0, remember. But it also got rid of all the other item data, because it replaced the entire items list. Next is modify. Modify allows you to pull data from one creature or block to another entity or block. This one will basically take the items from the block over there. Well, no, it will look at the data of the items of that chest and set it from the block here, which is this one, items. So it will take these items and basically copy that data over to those items. As you can see, this chest has this, and this chest has been changed to have that as well. Finally, you can remove data as well. So there's stuff in this chest, let's put a little more stuff in this chest. Either way, we can remove the items data, and it will clear the items entirely. So data has a lot more uses than just changing items in chests. You can change whether you can change an entity's movement speed, you can change an entity's, well, basically anything. But as long as it's in this giant NBT data here. Next we're going to do is data packs. This video is for command blocks, not data packs. If you want to learn how to make data packs, there are plenty of other videos. I might make one eventually, but this one is about commands. I do not have a data pack loaded into this world, but if I did, I could first list them. I could list all the enabled data packs, which as you can see is only the vanilla game, or I can list the available data packs, which is enabled and disabled. But either way, it also allows you to enable or disable certain data packs. So if you have a data pack you're working on, you can turn it off and on using this command. But other than that, I'm not going to get into the details. The next command is /debug. Now this one is interesting. You cannot run it in a command block. You have to run it in person. So as you can see, it says started tick profiling. Now you may be wondering, what the hell is tick profiling? And well, I'd actually ask that too. I've never really used this one, and it puts all it does is it puts a debug log into your .minecraft folder. So here we are in the .minecraft folder, and if I go to here and go into the debug, it creates these little client texts. This one's pre-created. I did not, for sometimes debug does not do anything. I'm not entirely sure its use, but it shows a lot of data. This goes on more, but it also goes into like system details, and I think it might have my IP address in there, so I'm not going to scroll down. But for example, it has this weird error. I have no idea what it is, but it certainly exists. Debug is more of a developer use kind of thing. If you're making a mod or you're making functions, some data pack things might have uses with /debug. But as I said, I've never used this one myself. Next is default game mode. Default game mode, well, is interesting. If you've ever opened to LAN before, you could see how you set game mode for when people join. So you can set this to whatever you want. This command basically changes that default game mode. So if you open to LAN and you're allowing everyone to come in creative mode, but you didn't want that, you actually wanted them to be in survival mode, you can just simply click default game mode survival and it will change it. Next command is difficulty. Difficulty changes the difficulty. Now it's peaceful. There's really not much else to it. Effect gives you a particle effect. This is another very simple one. So you do effect, and then give or clear. Oh. Effect is also fairly simple, and allows you to give or clear effects from people. So here we go. Effect, you're giving all players blindness for 5 seconds. You can also have it be infinite, but this will give me blindness for 5 seconds, as the command states. You can also give the effects an amplifier. So this will give all players jump boost for 5 seconds, but it will have an amplifier of 7. So this will give me jump boost 8, as you can see. It's a bit odd, it's like the slots, it counts from 0. So jump boost 0 is jump boost 1, and jump boost 1 is jump boost 2, and you just got to get used to it. You can also hide particles. So this will give me invisibility for 5 seconds, and the particles will be hidden. So you see how I have particles there, but when I click this, I'm invisible, but I have no particles. Oh yeah, he can see me as well. Don't worry about that. So here you go. As you can see, there's no particles, and I'm just invisible. It's also good to get rid of the particles because they can be kind of annoying sometimes. Now, the next part of effect is that you can also clear effects. So if I do this here, give myself a bunch of particle effects, boom, clears them all immediately. But if I want to clear only specific effects, I can also put the ID of the effect. So if I give myself jump boost and invisibility, I can click this button and it will only remove the invisibility. Next is enchant. I do not like this command. You'll see why. So, as you can see, I have 3 commands here. Each one will enchant the closest player with Aqua Affinity 1. This will enchant with Sharpness 1. And this will give me Efficiency 10. And this is based on whatever you're holding at the moment. So, as if I'm holding this helmet and I click this, it will give the helmet aqua affinity. If I hold this sword and I get sharpness, boom, I get sharpness. But say I want to give a pickaxe sharpness. Well, this is the limitation of this command. It can't give anything that's not supposed to have an enchantment. So diamond pickaxe does not support sharpness, so I can't use it. Another annoying part of it is that you can't give it a level over a certain amount. So efficiency is usually, you can only get up to 5, but this is on set to be 10. But as you can see, 10 is higher than the maximum level of 5 supported by that enchantment. So it doesn't work either, which is kind of annoying because sometimes it's nice to have an efficiency 15 pickaxe. Next is execute. Execute will execute commands. This one's a complex one, as you can see. It's, well, here's a most simple one. So execute positioned 5 blocks above the command block. So that's up 5y, 0x and 0z, and it will run a different command positioned up there. This is the particle command. We're going to get there later, but all you need to know here is that these particle commands will just place a particle wherever they're executed. So if we click this, we can see there's a happy villager particle 5 blocks above the command block using the positioned. So we have positioned, we also have align. Align will I'll basically align whatever the position is to the nearest 0 on that axis. So if I align it, so if my position was here and I wanted to align myself to the X, I would follow the X until I reached this side here. So this will align the particle to be aligned to X and Y. So usually it would be in the center here, but now it's now aligned to the X and Y axis here. The next command is at. So you can execute at the position of another entity and then run the command. So this will run at myself and do the particle. As you can see, it runs at my feet. This next part of execute is as, which executes a command as a different entity. And you basically, all that as does is set this at s here. So if you look at the selector, we have all players, all entities, nearest player, random player, and then current entity. But what is the current entity? Well, the current entity is the entity that's executing the command. So if I did this command here, it would deal damage to me because I executed it. As allows you to execute commands as other things. So this will basically set at s to be the closest entity of type sheep. So now, if I do this, sheep will run this command and die. Next one is, now you can, first of all, you can put these together. You can kind of, now with all these execute parameters, align, anchored, all these that I'm going to go over, you can put them all together like this. So this will execute as myself and as me, as the closest player, and at s, which is now me, remember, and it will run happy villager with these coordinates. It will do the particle, but instead of being the position of me, it will be this here. These are carets, basically, instead of being a set coordinate, like -41, -22, or 14, or like the tildes, where it's just relative to your position. These carets are relative to your position and where you're facing. So, if I click this button, it should place a particle 3 blocks in front of me. But as you see, it doesn't work quite as you expect. For some reason, instead of going where I'm looking, it's going where my feet are looking. And this is an issue sometimes because you want to be based on your eyes, not your feet. And this is where the anchored comes into play. So now it will do the same command except it's anchored at my eyes. And it's important that it's right after these two. So now it will place the particle in front of my eyes instead of in front of my feet. This next command is facing. So this will be facing. So this will execute the command facing me, the closest player. Facing my eyes more specifically. And it's going to do the same thing where it's doing the particle 3 blocks in front of itself. And that self is, well, the command block. So this command will basically have a particle following my direction from the command block, making a kind of circle around it. No matter where it doesn't matter where I'm looking, but where the command block is looking, because it's now facing me. The next one is if. If is how you only run certain commands when certain conditions are met. So this one is detecting if there's an entity that follows this parameter. So as long as the closest player is within 2 blocks of the command block, it will run the command say hi, which says hi. But if I move far away from it, it will not work because I'm not within 2 blocks. The next one is dimension, is in. And we're going to use if again here, so watch. In will execute commands in other dimensions. And this command specifically will detect if, we'll use if to see if we're in a certain dimension, and if that dimension is the nether. There's a lot of things you could do with if. You can also see if a biome is a certain thing in a certain position. You can see if certain items are certain ways, if a scoreboard has a certain value. And we're just going to use if here to detect the dimension. And if it succeeds, it will say this is in the nether. Which wouldn't happen if it wasn't in the nether because of this if here. Next one is on. Now, before you use on, you have to execute the command as something. So first we're going to execute as this wolf down here. And on works exactly like as, except there's a couple key words. So this will make the command run as the owner of this wolf here. There's also attacker, controller, leasher, origin, and all of these. And different entities track these different things. So for example, a cow wouldn't track the owner, so you couldn't use owner here. But a wolf has an owner, so it works perfectly. And this will basically give me blindness for 5 seconds. Boom. So as you can see, because I'm the owner of this wolf, I get blindness for 5 seconds. If I wasn't, then I wouldn't. This next one is rotated as. Rotated is rotated as. I'm not sure why there's an as here, but oh yeah, I know. So basically, this one will execute positioned up in this player head again, and it will be rotated in the same way as this entity. So I could either give it like a rotation like 0, 0, a specific rotation, or in this case, I'm rotating it the same amount as me, and it's going to do the particle 3 ahead again. So this will basically, as you can see, it follows where I'm looking, but from the position of this player head instead. Now, you've seen me the entire time I've been using run to actually run commands. It's always at the end of an execute, and after you do it, you can technically do the execute command again, but usually there's no reason to do that. And basically it allows you to run other commands, but you don't technically need it. As you can see, this command has nothing. It's just detecting if there's an entity within 3 blocks. So if it's not running anything, then what's the point? Well, command blocks take comparator outputs. As long as this succeeds, which it will only succeed if there's a player within 3 blocks, then it will light the comparator. So once I get in within 3 blocks, you can see the comparator lights up. And this can be very useful for whatever you're doing, because command blocks are also activated by redstone. Now, next is, oh yeah, store. So I'm going to bring back our test boss bar that we had earlier, and I'm going to show you how this works. Alright. So as you can see, this command this execute runs data get entity at p select item count, which means it will get the number of items that I'm currently selecting. So if I'm selecting 3, you can see it gets 3, or if I'm selecting 1, you can see it gets 1. But you also noticed it's storing that in the boss bar, setting its value to whatever the count I'm holding. And it does this by using store. So you can execute and store the results of the command, and this one will store it into the boss bar of test's value. So, and you can store data into blocks, entities, scoreboards, but for this case I'm using boss bars. Specifically, this one will store, and as you can see, it's setting the value to whatever the command gets, which it gets the count of items in my hand. There's a lot more you can do with this. You can, as I just previously told you, it's not just boss bars, but it's very useful. Now, next one, and I think is the second to last one, is summon, which will execute. It will summon an entity and execute the rest of the command as that entity. So it will summon a COD and then teleport the running entity up 5. And as you can see, it works perfectly because at S is now the COD. And then finally, we have unless, which is the same exact thing as if, except inverted. So this command will only run if I'm not within 2 blocks of this block. So you see it ran, but when I'm within 2, it doesn't run. Whew, that was a doozy. Now on to much simpler command. Experience. Now, this one's pretty simple. It adds experience points. As you see, this command is experience add all players 1 point. And boom, you see my XP bar goes up on the bottom there. You can also add levels. Oh yeah, by the way, the /XP is the same exact thing as /experience. I'm not sure why they both exist, but they do. So this will add 10 levels instead of points. As you can see, we have 22 levels now. Now, say we want to get what our current experience is. Well, I can just do query, and this will tell me I have 17 experience points. But I can also do levels, and to get my number of levels. So I have 17 experience points at the 22nd level. Then finally, you can set the levels. So instead of just adding, you can set a specific value, and it will do so. This will set my levels to be 0. Boom. The next command, and the command I probably should have done before clone, is fill, which fills a selected area similar to clone with a certain block. So this is my area, and these coordinates I've chosen will make a 3x3 block at this gold here. And it will fill it with andesite. As you can see, it's a 3x3 of andesite, as I previously stated. Now, you can also put little tags at the end. This one will destroy blocks, so it will fill it with air. Let's make it something else, actually, to be a little more interesting. We're going to fill this andesite with anvils, and it's going to destroy the blocks that were previously there. Boom. So as you can see, you can pick up the andesite because it was destroyed. Now, this next one will fill this diamond area, so it's slightly bigger. It's a 5 by 5 of sandstone, but it will be hollow, which means it will be filled with air. As you can see, it replaced the anvils. Finally, now there's also outline, which, if you do it again, seems the exact same. Why would you ever use outline? Well, if I place the andesite back in there, you'll see outline does not erase anything that's inside of whatever you're filling. But hollow, nope, hollow does. Next is keep. This will fill. This is similar to clone. I think clone has this, I'm not entirely sure. But say I place a bunch of gold here, or let's make it grass. So we're gonna make it grass. Keep will fill it yet again, but instead it will not. It will keep any block that's not air. So here, you can see it preserves the grass. Finally is replace. So you can replace a certain block with certain. You can replace only certain blocks. So this one will fill the same 5 by 5 area with air, except it's only going to replace sandstone. Do this, it leaves the grass back in its place. Next is fill biome, which is very similar to fill, except instead of filling with blocks, it fills with biomes. So we got a range here, which is just a square around this command block, and it's going to fill it with badlands. You can see by the grass changing color and by the F3 here. If you look at biome, you can see it changes from badlands to plains when I walk. You can also do a replace like fill, which will only replace certain biomes with others. Now this square is like from here to like over there, but it's only going to replace the badlands because it's using replace. And there's your bamboo jungle. And this is just a reset command block. It's just filling it with plains. Next is forceload. Remember how I was talking about it back in the nether portal? I'd use this command to force load that chunk that was being cloned to. And loaded chunks have different... Oh, I forgot to get rid of the testing thing. It's been up the entire time. Well, anyway, back to forceload. So this will basically... You can add new force loads. So this will add a force load that ranges from, well, that will just select this point. It's a range like fill, but it only uses X and Z coordinates because chunks, if I click F3G here, chunks span from all the Y's, so you don't need to keep track of Y. So this will add a new force load, and this could span one chunk, multiple chunks. This one only does this chunk. You can also remove the force load, but before that, let's test if it even worked. If I start the clock here, you can see it's loaded. And this redstone will continue running as long as this chunk is loaded. And because we force loaded it, no matter how far away I go from this redstone, it's always going to say loaded, no matter what. So let's go back. And now we're going to remove this chunk from being force loaded. Now, if I go away, you'll see it stops saying anything. And get rid of that. Next is /function. Now, as I said, I'm not going to go into data packs, but function allows you to run functions, which is just a big text file full of commands that you'll need to learn of separately. So usually there's, in a data pack, you'll have a folder, and that folder is like coolcraft or something, and then you have a function, you give it a name. Function allows you to So when you want to run a function in a certain part of the data pack, you do this name and then the actual function name, and it will run the function. You can also do with parameters. You can also run functions with parameters. So you can use entity data. This uses the same like NBT data. But I will not get into that. As I said, I'm doing commands, not data packs, even though they're very closely linked. Next is game mode. Fairly simple. Sets you to a different game mode. So this sets me to creative. This sets me to survival. Not much else to it. Well, when you're running it yourself, actually, you don't really need the target. You can just do it. But that's as much detail as I could really go into about game mode. You've probably used it before, actually. Anyway, here's game rule. Game rule allows you to change different rules about the game. For example, you may have noticed the sun has not moved once this entire time. That's because I used a game rule to turn off do daylight cycle. It also won't rain either because I turned do weather cycle off as well. This one is one that I typically do, which turns off command block outputs. As you can see, when I use commands, you can see these little things in the bottom, these gray text. If I turn this to false, then the gray text no longer appears. But I'm going to keep it on for the sake of, so it's easier to understand the commands if you want to look at them. As I said, I've used other things as well. It helps you, it just really helps with map making. If you don't want mobs to spawn, you don't want mobs to drop loot, there's plenty of other game rules I can go into. Giant list. Give gives you items. It's fairly simple. This is how you usually get command blocks before they added it to the creative inventory. Although I can't figure out how to activate that. So this will give the closest player a command block. Simple format. You can also give specific amounts of whatever item you're giving. So this will give the closest player 60 enrods. Boom. And finally, you can put, this is not really part of the give command, but it's something interesting to know anyway. You can give items with tags. If you put square brackets, you can put these little tags, and they give the item properties that they really wouldn't usually have. So here we go. This is just a couple examples. So now this diamond is consumable, which means I can eat it. Which is kind of cursed. And also it has a nutrition, because I made it a food as well. So it has a nutrition of 6, a saturation, and I can eat it no matter my hunger. I also gave this diamond other properties that like equipable, which means it can be equipped on your feet. So if I go here, boom, I've equipped a diamond on my feet. It doesn't do anything, you can't display, but you can do it. And there's plenty of other things you can mess with, but I won't get into too much detail. The next command is help. And honestly, it's not very useful. If you type help by itself, it will list all the commands and how you format them. There's, yeah. But as you can see, it doesn't really go into much detail about anything. It just tells you a little bit. If you want to be more specific, you can also do the specific command. So I want to know about fill. See, I have fill, you have a from coordinate, a to coordinate, the block you want to do, and then these parameters. I haven't personally not found it useful. I just use the wiki because it's more useful. It goes into more detail. But if you really have forgotten the formatting, you can just do this command. The next command is item, which is similar to give. It gives you items, but it's a little more specific. So if we go here, item, this will, oh boy. It's a much more complex command though, as you could tell. So here's the item. We're going to replace it with 5 stone. But what are we replacing? We're replacing the 5th container with stone. But what are we replacing the container of? We're going to replace the block here, this chest right here, we're going to replace its 5th container with 5 stone. And as you can see, boom, in the 5th slot, in slot 5, there's 5 stone. You can also replace entities. So that replaced a block, replace entity, closest player. My container 5 is here, and I get 5 granite. Now, you can also replace things from other things. So, like the data command, you can take data from one thing and change it to the other. So, for example here, this is replacing my container 4 with an item from the chest container 5. So it will take this stone here and put it in my 4th slot. Now, first of all, there's a lot of containers here, so you can also edit the armor. You can edit. You can even edit ender chest items and hotbar and all that. More specifically, you can also do weapon main hand. So this will only replace my main selected slot with whatever item I put, which is 1 anvil. This command here is one I'm entirely not sure how it works. I believe it interacts a lot with datapacks, and as I said, I'm not getting into that. But item modify, you select the slot and everything, but you have this modifier here. Now, you see, there's no like autofill, so a lot of things have autofill like this, but there's nothing here. And I believe that's because you need to put a certain file type into a data pack. I do not know how it works, and I'm not going to explain it because I don't know how it works. But I'm pretty sure it allows you to do special item properties and such. Oh, why is it? Next is JFR. JFR is a lot like a debug, and as in I'm not sure how it entirely works, but it also puts a file into your /debugs folder in .minecraft. So if I start it here, first of all, you'll notice a lot of lag, and I'll wait a little and walk around, and then I'm going to stop it. So as you can see, it's been dumped to the debug folder. You can see I have a JFR. Now, I can't actually open this file. I don't know how, but I'm pretty sure this is more of a developer side thing. I haven't found a use for it. Next is kick. First of all, it cannot be run by a command block, and if I run it here, nothing happens because I'm in a single player game. Even if I open to LAN, which I won't for various reasons, I cannot kick the owner of the server, which is me. So I can't really show you, but it's pretty self-explanatory. You just kick with the target person you want to kick, and then the reason you're kicking them. Next is kill. List. List simply lists the players. You can also list the players along with their UUIDs. UUIDs are a unique ID that every single entity has and can be used to identify them if you know how to use them properly. I personally only touched the surface of using them, but they are quite useful in cases. Locate. Locate allows you to locate structures and biomes and points of interest. This one will locate the nearest village plains. And then if I do this, it will allow me to teleport to the village plains. Click it, it will just give you this command and you can teleport to it, but I'm not going to because, well, I destroyed the village because it was really annoying. Anyway, you can also use these tags here. A lot of tags are not only for structures, so you can also have, there's also block tags and item tags, but this one is for structure tags, and this will locate the nearest village, just generally a village, which is the same village. which I destroyed. Yeah. Loot allows you to use loot tables and just spawn them or put them into chests. This one will insert into this chest here this loot, which is the stuff that goes into ancient city chests. Let me clear this for a second. So if I click this button, boom, you can see it put the loot in. I can put more loot in, and more, but yes, that's basically it. You can also give loot. So this will give me just straight up loot. Boom, ancient city loot. Another part of loot is you can also do, like the item command, replace certain slots with loot. So it's the same exact loot. I don't need to go to it, but actually I should remove it. Anyway, this will starting at container 5, put the loot of a underwater ruin. And as you can see, starting at my 5th slot, it starts giving me loot. And if I had items there previously, it actually replaces them, as you can see here. Finally, you can spawn loot as like items. So this will spawn the loot, one above, and it will be a village fisher. So if I click this button, boom, you can see a bunch of items appear. Very fun. Now, there's some more specific things you can, instead of loot, you can do these others, which I'm not sure the difference. I didn't find anything while testing, but you can certainly do that if you want. Next is me. Me is an odd command. As you can see, it does a star, then who's executing it, and then the message. So if I ran it, it does Dr. Cosmos is an odd command. The interesting thing about it is that it can be used even if cheats are disabled. So if a random person joined and if I opened a LAN, I didn't allow commands, they could still use this command because all it does really is put your name and then what command you're saying. Next is message. Message will allow you to send secret messages to specific people. This command will send a message to the closest player of secret message. You can see it whispers to you, secret message. I could also run this if I do message. I can message, I don't know, I'll message, oh I can't, it has to be a specific thing. Well anyway, it allows you to message specific people. And no one else will see it other than the 2 people who are sending and being sent the message. Next is particle. I used this previously, but here's a rundown on how it actually works. This will simply make a particle. This will simply make this specific particle at a certain position. So this is the angry villager particle. There's a giant list of particles here. And here we go. See, it made the angry villager particle that many 1.2 blocks above the command block. This one is going to do happy villager 2 blocks above, but we have these other arguments. First I'll go over is the count. So this means there will be 100 different particles, and they're going to have a speed of 1. Speed is a bit abstract. You'll have to kind of do trial and error to figure it out exactly. And then finally is these 3 coordinates right after the actual coordinates, which is the range. This is the distance, that the area that it will actually do the particles. And as you can see, it's also a little abstract. It's 0.2 vertically. And if you do this, it will make a pillar of these particle effects. I'm not sure what 0.2 means. This is not 0.2 blocks high. This is 1 block high, so I don't know how it got there. But it just requires trial and error, like the speed modifier. Speaking of speed, I'm going to be making enrod particles, basically filling this block. As you can see, 0.2 in all directions. So it's going to fill up the block entirely. But there's 2 commands running. There's one with a speed of 0 and one with a speed of 1. So if you click this, you can see the difference. The fast ones just went crazy, and the slow ones slowly drop. Now, after the count and the speed and all that, you can also have these other parameters. First is normal or force, which basically determines whether it forces, if there's a lot of particles already being used, it won't display any more unless you force it to. And then this one actually only allows specific entities to see the particles. So this means that all players within 3 blocks of the command block will actually see the particle. So I see it here, but if I'm out of 3 blocks of this command block, I won't see anything. That's because I wasn't in the range of people who could see it. Then finally, there's an interesting thing. If you set the count to be 0 particles, then it will actually have directional particles. What this means is, instead of these coordinates being a range like this or this, these are going to set a direction that the particle moves, and at what speed. So this will have the particles, well, let me just click it. As you can see, the flame particles go up and go on the Y and Z axis, determined by these 3 numbers, at a speed of 0.1. Next is /place. Place will place a structure, or a feature, or a jigsaw, or a template. I'm not entirely sure how the jigsaw and template work. I've never really used jigsaw command blocks, but I digress. Place feature, well, you'll be able to choose from a list of features and just place them. This is a birch tree feature we're going to be placing on this block right here. Boom, birch tree. And they're randomized, so sometimes they'll be, they are overlapping now, but sometimes they'll be different heights. And you can also place structures such as igloos or temples. There we go, we got an igloo. And the coordinates are a bit finicky. For some reason, you can actually change this position and it will be in the same position anyway. I'm not sure entirely how that works, but it does. Now I'm going to reset everything actually. Don't ask if that works. We'll get to it. It uses the gamerule random tick speed, which basically determines how plants grow. So when I do this, it makes the leaves decay really quickly for but a second. Interesting stuff. Next is playsound. And guess what? It plays sounds. This one will play the ambient cave sound as an ambient noise to all players. Now, what does ambient mean, and what are all these things? Well, this actually has to do with your settings. If I went to options and turned down ambient noise specifically, I guess there's no ambient. But if I had this instead, say I changed this to music, right? Which is a thing that I actually have muted. See, my music is off. Then I will not hear anything from this command block. See? But as long as it's a type that I... So the types just basically take the options and set those volumes as such. Now you can also play a variety of sounds. There's a giant list of them, and they're usually a block, entity, ambient, or music. Generic, I think, is one. I'm not entirely sure on that one. So this is going to be doing the alley death sound as a block noise to all players, but now we have more things. Now we're specifying the position of the noise to be at the command block. We can do like 3 above it. I don't see why not. And we're going to set the volume to be 1 and the pitch to be 1, which is the normal volume and pitch. But you can also turn down the pitch. So if we turn the pitch to 0, you can hear the zombie death sound is a lot lower. You can also use this thing called minimum volume, which basically allows you to have it fall off in different ways. So if I do this, normally it would be pretty loud, but it's 15 blocks above, so it's going to be quieter. Here we have, though, the minimum volume is 1, so even if it's far away, like 20 blocks away, I hear it fairly loudly. Now, finally, oh yeah, I already explained this, so I won't hear this because it's a music. Next is publish, which, well, cannot be used in command blocks, so I'm going to have to copy this. As you can see, it takes a boolean, a game mode, and a number, a port number. And actually, a fun fact about publish is it's the same exact thing as open to LAN. So if I click this here, you have a game mode, a boolean, which is allowing commands or not, and a port number. Publish just allows you to do this as a command instead. Oh. So if I do this, it opens to LAN. And as you can see, the option's gone, and it's replaced with player reporting. The next command we'll go over is random. Random allows you to generate random values. Don't worry about this. And using a certain sequence. So we're going to generate a random value from 1 to 10, and we're using the sequence called name. Now, you can name this whatever you want. We're going to call it name for here. So I get a 5, and then I get a 1, then a 10, then a 10 again, then another 10. Wow. And another 10. Wow, this is crazy. Either way, it's just a random value. I can also do random roll 1 through 10 name. And this will do much of the same thing, but it's actually very different. Roll tells everyone on the server what you rolled, while value only tells yourself. This can be used if you're like, I don't know, for some reason you want. This makes sure you're not cheating if you're like doing a game or whatever, right? Now, there's also reset, and it will reset a sequence. So as you see, we've been using a sequence called name the entire time. And we got 5, 1, 10, 10, 10, 10, 8. If I reset it and start giving myself random values, you'll see a pattern forming. It's the same exact thing. So if you want to reset a sequence, you could reset it and you'll get the same exact pattern every time. Now, finally, we have an example of using random. Remember execute store from earlier? Well, we're going to random roll again, right? But this time, we're going to store the result of this random into the block here, into the count of the item at this slot. So this will basically store whatever random value as the amount of items, the amount of white wool here. So we're going to set it to 1, right? So there's 1 white wool here. But this command block will take that and set the count to be whatever this random roll is. But we're also going to use this thing here, this number here, which is a scale. In store and a lot of other get commands, you could put a scale to it, and this just multiplies whatever number. Usually, you want it to be 1. You want it to be the exact same. But in this case, we're going to make it 10 times whatever that roll is. So if I click this, we rolled a 2. So scaling it by 10, we should have 20 white wool in this chest. And as you can see, it works perfectly. So every time I roll, it puts a different amount of white wool in the chest. Next is return. Return is interesting. It is more useful for data packs than commands themselves. But the premise is simple. You return a value. So as you see, we're using store again here, and this will store, and let's talk about storage. Storage is like a extra place that you can store data there. It's kind of hard to explain. I'll just do it here. So what this is going to do is it's going to store the results of the command into a storage called Minecraft Cool. And we're gonna in Minecraft Cool, there will be a number field, which will be an integer, and we're scaling this by 1. So we're gonna return 4, which will put 4 into the number field of Cool. And not much seemed to have happened, but now we can get the storage of Cool. And as you can see, in the number field we have a 4. This number field didn't exist before we actually set it. So we could set other fields if we wanted. Now, say we wanted to get specifically the number instead of the entire Cool. We can also give it a path, like we've done before with paths, and a scale if we wanted to. And this will tell you the number. So we can do it, if we do a 10 scale, we'll get 40, but get 4 if we do it normally. And it will just get the number if we want. Now, another thing we could do is return fail, which basically all fail is 0. If we store it again and then see what's in Cool, you can see the number is 0 because return fail just returns a 0, and we stored it in number again. And yeah, I've already showed you. Oh yeah, here we go. So this command is a funnier one. It will store the results in the storage yet again of number, but instead it's going to return. But the command is a little different. It's going to return whatever this command runs. So we got run, return, and then return is going to run a different command, and then return whatever that command gives back. And the command we're going to run is get the storage of Cool and the number, and we're going to scale it by 10. So this will take whatever the number is, scale it by 10, and then store it back into number. So it will effectively just multiply it by 5. Let me store 4 back in there. So with the 4, when we do this, it will multiply it by 10. And we get a 40. We get 400. And this is not quite as useful, and as I said, it's much more useful in functions, because when you run return in a function, it will end the function. It will end the function entirely, so anything after it won't be executed. Also, here we go. In this, we don't really need a return here. We could remove the return, and it would work the same exact way, but sometimes in a function you don't have that, so you just have return, and then it would work. Next up is ride. Ride allows entities to ride other entities. This one will have, this command is ride sheep mount pig. So it will make the closest entity that's sheep mount the closest entity that's a pig. And there we go. Sheep is now riding the pig. If we want to dismount the sheep, we can ride, then select the target to dismount. Then they will. You can also have players mount other things. So now I'm riding a sheep, which is normally not possible. And that's most of it. That's basically it with ride. I'm going to take a break. Oh my god! Whoa. I'm back. Okay. Next up is rotation. Rotation is a command that rotates people. So this will rotate me to face the rotation of 0, 0. Boom! I'm now facing 0, 0. You want to see our current rotation? It's right there. It should be circled in post. Haha. Screw you, future me. Now, you can also rotate to not 0, 0. So there we go. Now I'm facing there. You can also rotate to be facing a certain location, so this will make me face the command block. But as you can see, it doesn't really work that well. My eyes aren't facing the command block. And this is another anchoring issue. So if we execute anchored at the eyes, this will work as it should. It'll make a little more sense at least. You You can also have it face certain entities, so I can face the nearest entity that's a sheep, which is right there. Although this is making my feet technically face the sheep. But anyway, because I didn't anchor it. And then another interesting thing you could do is have it rotate facing forward and slightly to the left. So when you click it, it makes you face slightly to the left every time and makes you do a little circle. Very fun. Next up is say. I used this previously and it's very simple. It just says whatever you put there. And if you run it, as a certain entity, it actually, well, I'm going to run it as all entities, but it basically puts their name right before it. So this Armorstand saying hi, I'm saying hi, Strider. I don't know why there's Striders, probably because of the Nether. Next up is schedule, which, again, this has a lot to do with functions and data packs. This is not a really command. Here we go. It basically it schedules functions to happen in a certain amount of time, whether it's seconds or days or ticks. I've never used this myself, but mostly because I just discovered it. But you'll have the name of the folder and then the function. And append to the schedule or replace the schedule with something. I've never used it before, so I wasn't able to test it. Next up is scoreboard. And as you can see, another long one. Oh, we're almost there. Scoreboard is very useful. It's the primary way of keeping track of anything ever. Any number you want. But first we need to create an objective. So we're going to make two of them here. One's going to be called deaths, and it's going to be a death count scoreboard, which will count the deaths. You can also count things like food, or health, or kills by other teams, your level, and a lot of other things, like if you've broken or interacted with certain things. This one is going to be called dumb, and it's going to be a dummy. A dummy basically does nothing, so you have full control over the scoreboard. You can also give it a display name here, so it's going to be called dumber as its display name. Now, the scoreboards exist. You can't really see them yet, but we're going to list them here, dumber and deaths. And let's test deaths actually. If we go to this command block, we can actually get the player score for different scoreboards. So this will get the death score of the closest player. And it may say players here, but you can also have entities have scores as well. So as you can see, nothing is set because I haven't died yet. But once I die, it will tick up by 1, default value being 0. And I'll have 1 death. Now, if you want to actually see the scoreboard, you could set the display to be the sidebar or above the name tag, I believe. There's a lot of things. Now, here we go. Below the name, the list, the sidebar, and this is going to make deaths appear on the sidebar, and this will make dumb appear on the sidebar using set display. Boom. But as you can see, only dumber appeared. That's because only one thing at a time can be on the sidebar. And it just so happens that it's the last thing that was run, which is dumb here. Deaths was on the sidebar for an infinitesimally small time. Now say we want to change the display name after the fact. Well, we can use objectives modify to modify the scoreboard dumb. And we're going to change the display name. There's other things you could change, like the number format, which I'll get to later. But this will change it to be the yellow text of smartness. And as you can see, it changes it to look different. Now, there's not really much happening in the scoreboard. It just says smartness. So we're going to add myself to the scoreboard. This will set my dumb score to be 4. Boom. So now I have a 4. This will, players, add my 10 to my dumb score. Boom. This will remove 3 from my dumb score. Boom. Now, I can now list the scoreboard. As you can see, I can list my scores. I have 1 death, and my smartness, well, my dumbness, I don't know how to describe it, is 11. I can also just list tracked entities, which is me. I'm the only one being tracked right now. Now, you can set players that don't exist. So we're going to player set dumbest to have a dumb of 10. So click this. You can see they're on the scoreboard. They're not an entity that exists, but they're still there. It lets you store variables. Now that we have numbers, I can show you the number format to be styled a certain way. It uses the JSON text format as I've previously described. Here's a new one of color. You can set it to a bunch of predetermined things that you have to memorize, but it's pretty simple, like red, green, blue. I think dark gray might be one. And then you can also do bold to be true. You just gotta memorize this format or use a generator online. This is modifying dumb's number format to be styled in a certain way. There's also a lot more options that I haven't found use for, but I digress. This next one is operation. Operation lets you add one person's score to another's. So this one will add the score of dumbest to my dumb score. So this takes the dumbest score of the objective dumb and adds it to my score in the objective dumb. I could do deaths here as well, and it would add this one to my death score. But this is the one visualized, so I'm going to use this right now. So you can see I've gained more. Fun fact, it sorts the scoreboard by highest, so if I have less than dumbest, then I'll go below it. Finally, I can reset certain players, so I can reset dumbest and it'll not appear on the scoreboard anymore. But if I set them to 0, it would just display a 0. Finally, we can remove scoreboards, and these 2 commands will remove the 2 objectives of dumb and deaths. And they're gone. All the information with them is also disappeared. The next one we're going to go over is seed. This is a nice break, because it's very simple. You type /seed, you get the seed. Nothing else to it. And now setblock. Setblock sets the block of a certain place. So this will set a beacon to be right above this gold block. Quite simple. Just put a coordinate and then a block type. Actually, I'll keep that. You can also, right after it, put destroy, which means it will destroy the block that was previously there. So this will replace the beacon with brick stairs and also destroy it in the process, so you can pick it up. Cheap is an interesting one because it will only set the block if that block is air. So if I click this, nothing happens, but it will work if there's air there. And finally, this is not to do with setblock, but is a thing you could do with any setblock commands like fill or clone. Actually, not clone, but this one. You can put these little square brackets after and set a bunch of properties. Fences have these properties. Some blocks do not have any properties, but this one allows you to have the fence connect to east and north, even though there's no blocks there. If I update them, however, it will get rid of them. Next is setworldspawn, which, you guessed it, sets the world spawn. Now, if I set my spawn on the bed and set the world spawn to be at that emerald block over there, that's what this command will do. Boom. So now it's there. But if I set my spawn and then die, I will spawn at the bed, not the world spawn. If I break the bed, however, I will spawn at the world spawn, because it's the world spawn, not your spawn point. You can also set an angle that you spawn in at, but I couldn't get this to work. So this command will set the world spawn to be this at an angle of 90. But when I die, I'm not facing the 90 degrees. I'm facing 0, which I don't know how to fix. But do you know what does work with that? Spawnpoint. Spawnpoint does allow you to set the angle, and it actually works. This one will set my spawn point to be on the gold block. The world spawn will still be there, but my spawn point trumps that. So if I do that, it sets all the players spawn to be right there. If I die, I'll respawn here on the gold block facing -180. Next is spectate. Spectate allows you to force people to spectate certain things. So here we go. This will make the closest player spectate the nearest chicken. So if I click this, nothing happens. That's because I'm not in spectator mode. So this command will set me to spectator mode, then activate the command. And now I'm in spectator mode, and now I'm spectating the chicken. Works. And there we go. That's basically it with spectate. Next up is spreadplayers, which is a neat command that allows you to spread a bunch of entities over an area. So in this case, we're going to spread the players around this area that's padded with grass here, the path grass. So here's how you do the command. You do spread players, and then a center coordinate, which is of that gold block right there. And then you have the spread distance and the max range. The max range is basically how far away from the center you'll be able to go, in a square, of course. This is about teams, so if I haven't gotten to teams yet. Actually, have I? Yeah, no, I haven't. But when we do teams, basically this will allow you to group teams together when spreading players. And then finally, this is who is being spread. This number, I just keep it at 0. It's basically the minimum distance apart that players have to be, although sometimes it makes the command not work. So I'm just going to click it, and boom. As you can see, I'm spread randomly around this area. As you can see, it puts me on the top of a block every single time. So if I built even more up, it would put me on the very, very topmost block. Now, this next command will use armor stands instead of me, so you can see how it works in more detail. So as you can see, the armor stands are being spread around there randomly. You see how they're overlapping? If you turn this to 1, it will make sure that none of the armor stands overlap. So the spread distance is 1. They need to be spread by at least 1 block. Now, you can also put this under condition. So you could do the spread distance range, and instead of immediately doing this Boolean, you can do under a certain Y value, and then the Boolean and the targets. So this is going to spread players around this gold block, but under this. So you'll see there's armor stands under the platform here. The next command is stopsound, which stops the sounds that are happening currently. So, for example, I have an Enderman here that will make a loud sound when I look at it. And it stops the sound completely. This is the most simple version of it. Stop sound, and then the players you want to stop sounds for. It stops every single sound ever. Now I can kill this guy because he's annoying. Dude. If you want to block specific sounds, however, you can also do that. So you can do stop sound, the players, and then the sound type, and then the sound ID. As you can see, this command will play ambient cave as a block sound. And we can just stop it with stop sound. If you don't know exactly if it's a block or ambient, you can put this little star here, and it will block all types of this sound. The next command is a very simple one, and it is summon. It summons entities. So this one will summon a husk at the position of the block right above this command. As you can see, it summoned the husk. Now, you can also, after all of this, put NBT data that the entity will start with. So this will summon an armor stand with this NBT data of small and invulnerable, set to 1. As you can see, it's small, and if I go in survival, I can't destroy it. In creative, you can destroy them. How dare you? In creative, you can destroy invulnerable entities. And this brings us back to NBT data, which how you figure out what you can change is basically anything here. If it's listed here, you can change it using this NBT part right here. So I could start it with a certain rotation or a certain portal cooldown if I really wanted to. The next command is actually really useful in getting this entire world to work in the first place. It's tag. Tag tags entities with, well, a tag. It'll make more sense in a second. So here we go. This will tag me, the closest player, with a tag called placeholder. This can be whatever name you want it to be. So now you see I have the tag of placeholder. I can also list tags of certain entities. And as you can see, I have 2 tags, placeholder and safe. Now, safe is what I've used in this entire setup to basically save entities. So if I want to clear all the entities that I don't want, so like all these armor stands, this husk here, I can do this command to kill all entities without the tag of safe. And I've saved a few specific entities. So as you can see, everything died. But this boat is still here. This chicken's still here. Those sheep and pig are still here because I want them around for the demonstration purpose. So that's like an application of the tags. Finally, you can remove tags. So if I do this, I no longer have the placeholder tag. There we go. Now, next command is team, which allows you to add or remove people from teams. Let me respawn this villager for a second. It'll be important. Now, teams kind of act like tags initially. It's just like a label. So here we go. I'm going to add a new team. I'm going to create the good team, and it's going to have this display name. Like scoreboards and boss bars have those display names. This has display names too. So I created a good team, and I have this pre-made evil team. So this you can use the team command to join certain teams for certain entities. So I'm going to join the evil team, or I could join the good team. But you cannot be in both. So I'm going to list the teams here. You can list them, and then you can list the members inside specific teams. And as you can see, I'm currently on the good team, but if I join the evil team... Oh my god, why did I do that? And if I join the evil team, I am no longer on the good team, because you can only be part of one team at a time. You can also leave certain entities from their teams, so this will remove me from whatever team I'm in, evil or good. And then this command will empty the good team, leaving it with no members. So if I join good here, I can do that, but if I'm an evil, it won't do anything, because it's not the good team. Now, teams have this very interesting property where you can give these rules, basically. So this team command is actually how you turn off friendly fire and have people able to see people who are invisible right here. So you have to modify the team. So we're going to modify the good team to be able to see friendly invisibles, and we're going to set it to true. So this means if you're on the good team, you'll be able to see people who are friendly and invisible. No, I gotta kill this guy. Sorry. So, and this command will also make the good team have a collision rule, never, which means I'll never collide with other entities in my team. I will never collide with other entities. I won't get pushed around. So let's do that, and summon the villager. So as you can see, this command puts that villager on my team. So now, if I make him invisible, I can see him. Even though he's invisible, the see friendly invisibles is on. And then I also don't collide with anything because I turned collisions off, so now I won't be pushed around. Finally, you can remove teams from existence. So I'm going to remove the good team, leaving only evil. And now I can't even join it because there's no team good anymore. The next command is teammsg, which allows you to message people on your team. So this is going to run a command as an evil player, which I am now. And it's going to run team message, they have the flag. So this will just broadcast an entire message to the entire team I'm on. And no one else. Basically it. Next is teleport, and also known as TP. They're the same exact command. They do the same thing. Teleport teleports. You can teleport whatever target to a position. This will teleport me to this gold block right here. Boom. Now, you can also give it a rotation, so you could teleport a person to a certain position at a certain rotation. So, as you can see, rotation there again, it's going to be 45, 45. That's facing towards the Steve head. You can also have it teleport someone facing a certain position. So this position is the position of this skull right here, and I'm using anchored eyes. So my crosshair is facing the skull. And yet again, anchored eyes, we can have it face an entity as well. So now this TP will teleport me to the position, and I will be facing the entity of the nearest armor stand. And there we go. I'm facing the bottom of the armor stand. Finally, you can teleport entities to other entities. So this will teleport the closest player to the closest armor stand. And I'll also be facing the same direction as it when teleported. Next is tell. It's the same as message, the /msg command. So I already went over that. Tellraw is, well, an interesting command. It's not like say, it doesn't just say text, you can't do that. You need to have it in JSON format. So yet again, you can use JSON text generators online, but here's a couple examples. Here you have text and then colon, the message you want to do. So this will just put it in chat. So this will be cool message again, but it will have a color of green and it will be bold because I'm setting bold to true. There we go. Then finally, you can also put selectors. So if you put these square brackets at the end, you can link together a bunch of JSON texts. So you see this comma here, and then this next JSON is actually a selector. So it will say my name in chat. Next up is tick. Tick is a very fun command. So let me get these items. Alright. Tick is a very fun command to use, but it cannot be used by command blocks. So I'm going to freeze the tick here. So now the game is frozen. I can place sand, it won't fall. I place pigs, they won't fall. Shoot arrows, oh, they just freeze in the air. If I hit a pig, it will be knocked, but it won't do anything because it's frozen. Now, tick has this step function, which allows you to step the game forward for a set amount of time. So I'm going to make the game run for 3 seconds, and then it will freeze again. And as you can see, it has frozen again, and I can go back to doing whatever I want in freeze. Until I do tick unfreeze. And the game continues normally. If you want to see interesting info about the tick, well, it's not that interesting, kind of boring really, you can do tick query, which will tell you if it's frozen or not, what the tick rate is, average time per tick, and a bunch of percentiles. Next is tick sprint, which basically runs the game as fast as possible for the set amount of time. This will sprint the game for a day. I'm going to turn on daylight cycle so you can see it. Tick sprint a day. As you can see, it will sprint the day forward for an entire day. And there we go. You can also set the tick rate to be something faster or slower. So the tick rate is by default 20. That's what it normally is. But you can set it to something slow, like 1, and the game will go slow motion. Actually, 1's bad example because it's way too slow. Here's quarter the speed. So now everything's moving real slowly. Very cool. But you can also make it go a lot faster. So let's go 10,000. Actually, that might be a little too much. So if it's set to 1,000, the game's running a lot faster. You'll see the wheat grows really fast. And I think this one, no, it can't be run by a command block. Yeah, no. Oh yeah, huh. Button presses are quicker now. That's interesting. And that's tick rate. Next up is time, which, wow, guess what? It sets the time. So there's some presets here, so you could set it to day, midnight, night, or noon. Day is like around there. Midnight is midnight, and noon is noon. You can also set it to a specific second or time frame, like days or ticks. So this will set 650 seconds into a normal Minecraft day, which is right here, apparently. You can also add amounts of time, so this will add 100 seconds to the day. And you can see the moon as it moves. You can also set by days as well, so D means day, S means second, T means tick. And you can see the day move by the phase of the moon. Finally, you can query the day or daytime. It tells you basically the clock time. So this is 2 o'clock, and this is how many ticks in the day we are. There's also game time, which is the total amount of ticks the game has been running, I believe. Or maybe seconds. I'm not entirely sure. I think it's ticks. Finally, this is just for resetting purposes. The next one is title. Very similar to tellraw, except it's on the middle of your screen. Very obvious. It's a very similar format, so you do title, the targets you want a title for, and then you say title again, and then you do the JSON, whatever text. Same as tellraw. Subtitle is a thing that will appear below the title. You can click it, it won't appear until you have a title. So as you can see, crazier is a subtitle now. It's right here. You can also clear the title, so if I have this title, I can just clear it, and it's gone. I'll have to do it again. Next is title times. This will set the amount of time that it fades in, stays, and fades out. So now if I use this, now the title will fade in for 3 seconds, stay 3 seconds, and go out really quickly. So you see it takes much longer than before. And it stays for 3 seconds, and then it's out, just like that. If you want to reset the times to whatever the default is, you can use reset, which also clears it as well. So if I do this here, reset, it just resets everything. And it's a normal time again. Finally, the title has the ability to put something in the action bar, which is right, if you look near my hotbar, boom, craziest. This does not follow anything on the times. I don't think it gets cleared either, or reset. So it's just completely separate. Next is TM. It's the same exact command as team message. Trigger is highly linked to scoreboards. You need scoreboards to actually use it. So here's scoreboard. We're going to make a new objective called trick. That's the ID. And it's going to be of a trigger type. And it has to be of trigger type. So we're going to create it, and we're going to set the display to be a sidebar so we can see it. Now, if we want to actually use the /trigger command, we have to enable ourselves for that specific scoreboard. So this will enable the closest player to use the trick objective. So let's click it. And as you can see, my name appears on the side. Now, All I need to do is do /trigger and then the name of the objective, and then I could do set or add and then a value. So that set it to 56, and this one will add 3 to it. But wait, it says I cannot trigger the objective yet, but we already enabled it, so why not? Well, that's because every time you want to use it, you have to enable it separate times each. So if I want to add more, I'm going to have to enable it again and again. This is to remove the trick, but you might be wondering, why use triggers? This seems kind of useless, you know? It just does what scoreboard does. Why can't we just use the scoreboard command? Well, the interesting thing about the trigger is that it doesn't require any permissions to use. Like the message command and the /me command, anyone can use it, no matter if you're an op or an admin or just some random player in a server. You can always use /trigger. And it allows people to basically activate commands without using commands. So if you hook it up to a certain objective, you can have it do certain things. Next up is weather. This sets the weather. I have to change this do weather cycle gamerule to true because I had it false before. So you can basically have the weather turn to a certain type for a duration of time. You don't need this duration, you'll see later. So this will make it rain for 5 seconds. There we go. You can also make it thunder for days. So I'm going to make it thunder for 2 days. And I'll sprint through it, so you don't need to wait. And as you can see, it's definitely a thunderstorm. Now, if you don't put a duration, and you just put weather rain like this, I'll let it finish the sprint. Now, if you don't put a duration, like here, weather rain, then it will just set it for the normal Minecraft weather time, like it's normally raining if it started raining. I'm not sure how this is calculated, but it just goes on for like a normal amount of time. I don't know how to explain it. Clear it, and this is just for reset. Next up is worldborder. Worldborder allows you to modify the properties of the worldborder. So we're going to start with center. Center will center the worldborder to different points. So it's going to center it right at this gold block here. You can't see it because the worldborder is very far away right now. Here we go. Now we want to set the distance to be 20 blocks. Usually it's like in the millions, but we're going to set it to 20, and there you go. There's the border. 20 blocks wide, centered on this gold block. Now we can also set it to be a distance over a certain time. So we can set the 30 over 5 seconds. As you can see, it turns green and grows to 30, which is around those bean blocks over there. You can also add. You don't need to just set, you can add the worldborder over. So we're going to add 10 distance over 3 seconds. Now, you can also get the diameter currently of the worldborder if you really want to. And, oh yeah, and this is new. So, here is the warning. If you normally, cancel. So, worldborder has a warning distance. Usually, its default is 5. So, you'll see if I get near the worldborder, this little red tint glow goes around my screen until I'm right next to it. But it depends on how far I am. But you can change this distance to be something else. So I'm going to set it to 0, for example. Now, when I won't get any of that red until I'm 0 blocks away from the worldborder. Next is warning time, which is a little hard to explain. So I'll do a little... Okay, I'll show you how it works. So warning time basically means how much will the worldborder warn you if it's like closing in. So if it's closing in and it's gonna be where you are in like 5 seconds, then this warning time will warn you about that. So this will set warning time to be 5 seconds. And this will go to here over 10 seconds. Now, as you can see, there's no warning until it's about halfway, and then I start getting the warning glint. It's a little difficult to show here, but that's how it works. Next is the damage buffer. So if you're out of the world border, then I'll click these both buttons. So this will set the damage buffer to be 10, and this will set the damage amount to be 1 damage per block. Basically, when you're out of the border, if you're 10 blocks, if you're a certain distance away, default 5 blocks away from that border, outside of it, you're going to start taking damage. And that damage is usually 0.2 damage per block past that buffer. So now, what will happen is once I'm 10 blocks away, because this command set that, it will start doing 1 damage per extra block I am away from the border. So I'm going to close the border in on us right here. These blocks mark the 10 blocks away point. So I'm going to go in survival. Let me just heal myself for a second. All right. So the moment I reach these gold blocks, I'll start taking damage. There we go. So as you can see, I start taking damage. Now, if I go a couple blocks away, like 3 blocks, you'll see I'll take 3 damage per tick. Ow. I'll take a lot more damage per tick the farther I go out. And that's at a rate of 1 per block. And, oh my god, that's it. That's all the commands in Minecraft as of 1.21.4. Whew, that was a lot of talking. I'm not used to talking this much. Well, if you have any more specific questions, you can ask in the comments below. Oh, looks like the lightning hit the pig. If you have any questions, you can ask in the comments below. I'll probably answer them. I don't really have much else going on this break. And I'll see you guys in a future video if I continue this.